Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much again for joining me here. Hope you're having a phenomenal day. We're taking a quick look, of course, at the crypto market overview, discussing this fear and greed index, and just generally speaking, how altcoin season index is looking versus that of the CryptoNet ETF inflow and outflow, of course, too, because we may actually see that this weekend. We're going to talk about the disparities between liquidation data and the heat map data for specific coins, as well as, of course, the macro perspective and also the local order block data. So before we get started, just hit the like button, comment below. Greatly appreciate you doing so. Let me know, do you think we're going to go up or down this weekend? It's an interesting scenario. Either way, let's go ahead and take a closer look. All right, folks, before we jump into the back end juicy liquidation data here, let's talk quickly about the polls that I posted earlier today. This is about 30 minutes ago. I asked basically what your thoughts were for this weekend. Are we going to see a pullback or not? Majority of you on crypto YouTube feel that we're going to see 100% FOMO and we're going up. That's par for the course, considering I'm sure there's a lot of other influencers saying that we're going to the metaphorical moon. We look at crypto Twitter a little bit more logical in most cases. We can see here that, yes, we feel that we're going to see a slow bleed this weekend. That's kind of what I'm leaning more towards as well. We'll explain more so in the video, obviously, what that looks like and what I'm looking for. But the general consensus here is that we're massively overextended leading into a weekend. Generally, when we see strong green weekdays, we see decently red weekends, right? It's just kind of the par for the course there, that typical profit taking over the weekend. So just be mindful that that's a stronger probability here, just based on, the psychological aspect of trading, okay? Now, when we look at the technical side here, a little bit more so, when we look at liquidation, or in this reference here, the order block data, we can see 122,000 heavily guarded there, right in that 121.8 to 122K range is a lot of selling pressure and a lot of buying at 121.5. So once more, this is just more locally. This is very much a very small time frame. This obviously changes throughout the day, but the concept here is that we are seeing a lot of buying and selling pressure at this level. So this is like a highly contested area. Okay, those are more orders than I normally see on an order block. What I want to touch on here too is the last 7 days of data. We can kind of recognize that in the last 7 days worth of liquidation, there's still a tremendous amount of liquidation on the downside than the upside. Now, are we going to see 110,000? Probably not for a while, if at all. But on the same accord, there's still a lot of liquidation close by that could very well get hit. And we look at the 30-day time frame as well. There's much more to the downside, kind of just implying that we have more propensity to see a short-term correction at the very least. So I'm still leaning more towards that. But once more, when you look at the data here, outside of liquidation, there's still some really strong some strong technical components essentially letting us know that further upside makes more sense. All right, so let's take a look here. Taking a look at liquidation really quick just to clarify. We're seeing a 3-to-1 ratio for Ethereum for shorts versus longs getting liquidated, and it's more like a 4-to-1 ratio for Bitcoin, okay? So the general consensus here is that Bitcoin is leading the pack. Altcoins are following suit, but most altcoins are running 1-to-1 with Bitcoin, but also 2-to-1 to the downside, essentially, when the corrections start to happen. And I'll show you on the charts what I mean by that, but you want to be very careful longing altcoins late in the day here today, just based on the simple fact that majority of them are massively overextended. They've been moving up in the same direction for 4 days straight, with a lot of divergences forming on smaller timeframes. So once more, that isn't necessarily always the case, but for the most part, that usually will imply that we see a correction somewhat over the weekend, right? So it may not be today. It'd probably be Sunday after another pump on Saturday. You never truly know, but that's kind of where we're at. Either way, we have really positive net ETF inflow, essentially implying that there's a lot of sustainability in this price point. Okay, so 120,000, 124K, that may be the new range for Bitcoin. Okay, and when we look at altcoin season index 67, this basically just tells us that our altcoin market cap is super high right now. We're at 1.75 trillion. So that's a pretty significant margin. It tells us that majority of altcoins are outperforming versus Bitcoin, and that's usually a great sign. Now, I'm not going to be a proponent for altcoin season. I'm never going to tell you that everything's going to go to the metaphorical moon just because. The truth is we're going to see some outliers perhaps, but I don't think we're going to see every single coin taking off. But once more, at this point, it's already kind of happening, right? We can see that significant ratio of top 100 coins are doing extremely well. And I think that's probably more so the focus. I would say if you're going to consider trading coins, keep it in the top 100. You'd be a lot safer because they're the safer plays right now. It's all those weird, random, low cap market coins that are hard to really anticipate. Either way, we're in a neutral market here, neutral to bullish, so basically, or neutral to greedish rather. And that basically puts us in a position where we may want to consider selling. Now, I don't mean selling by just closing or liquidating your entire portfolio. Just simply put, if you're going to consider, taking some profits, now might be a good time when everything is fully overextended. Once more, we could very well continue to run. I'm not touching my spot bag at all. So just give you some perspective there. I'm simply referring to leverage plays. Just say you got in at 112,000 for Bitcoin. Don't be one of those crazy persons that just holds on for forever on a high leverage trade. You're going to get eaten up on fees. Yes, you can boast about it online and show how awesome you are, but nobody really cares. It's easy as that. What matters is growing your portfolio and keeping it to yourself and being a humble trader. Okay, so let's take a look here at Bitcoin, kind of the back end data, kind of see where we're at. And just kind of go from there. So to touch on, obviously we're in a greedish type of situation right now. So obviously, as the price goes higher, it's more propensity for selling pressure. So once more, just remember that we are in we're in a greedish type of situation, and it's basically one of those. If you haven't heard the term buy the fear, sell the greed, you probably should consider selling in that regard. Once more, simply referring to not spot bags. I'm simply talking more so about leverage plays. You don't want to get super greedy with leverage. All that being said, though, we can see the amount of margin being used is significantly low right now for top traders. So they're starting to taper off leading into the weekend. This is very common. I would be very careful trading into the weekend here as far as longs are concerned. We may see a couple pumps here and there, but for the most part, I think that we are due to correct ourselves here, and I'll show you on the charts too what I mean by that. When you look at lower time frames for these altcoins, they're pulling back twice as hard as Bitcoin is when Bitcoin corrects itself, but they're also moving 1-to-1 ratio with Bitcoin to the upside. Once more, it'll make more sense when I show it to you. The outlier here, and this is the thing we got to understand, is that we do have a significant amount of volume for whale traders. So these are basically $1 million positions or higher, or 100,000 to 1 million. There's a lot of positions being opened here, basically implying that the whales are pushing the price action higher. What's going to happen when the whales decide they want to push the price action lower? Most people are going to be trapped in late longs. Okay. So just once again, watch it close if you're going to be a long position holder today, and consider, I wouldn't say consider shorting, but just wait for better long opportunities that may occur here in the near future. All that said, 118,000 is that local area of support based on open interest for Bitcoin. 25 billion in liquidation long delta. This is significant overextension, and that basically implies that we're more likely to pull back too, because we have too many longs in the market. Okay, what goes up must come down. It's that whole thing there. So this is just kind of food for thought. Obviously, this doesn't mean everything, but there's just a lot of reasons why the price may start to slow down. There's a tiny bit of liquidation here left, upwards about 122, small chunk at 123. So I would just say in general, we may see one more wick up here to hit that 124K resistance range, but the likelihood of breaking through that the first time here is pretty low, right? It's an all-time high. Generally speaking, you retest all-time highs quite a few times before they break. So just be aware of that. That's kind of where we're at there. But the easy way to understand is the market is definitely bullish, and there's no other way around it. If you do consider shorting, it's considered higher risk. So be careful how you short in this market right now. Okay, so let's take a look at the daily time frame and just kind of understand that we're hitting a 5 on TDS, basically telling us we've been moving in the same direction for 5 days without correction. Now we can see 9s, 10s, 13s on the charts when it comes to that, so we're still very early on this continuation pattern. But for the most part, we're hitting that 70 on the RSI level, and generally speaking, we're hitting that overbought level, and for the most part, you will start to see the price action start to slow down once you hit that overextension. So we're starting to hit a few things there, but for the most part, we're above all moving averages. We're in good shape. We're above our point of control at 117.5. That's that local support range top. 117.5 to 115.5 is a close approximate there. That's that little support range for us. So if we do end up pulling back, that's an excellent place to consider dollar cost averaging, because we spend a lot of time not breaking through that level, and we still have yet to retest it. Super common to retest previous highs and new lows. So that's just kind of something to think about there. Outside of that, the 4-hour time frame is extremely overextended as well. We hit a 9 on TD sequential here, back at 114 before the price took off. We hit an overextended state here at 119, and now we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 4-hour candles of overextension. So we're literally where we should have turned around on day number 3, we're now at day number 4 with no correction. So um, it has to happen at some point, right? You can't just keep going up forever. So anyways, that's just kind of the logical part of my brain kind of talking to you here through this, just letting you know that it's illogical in most cases to try to buy the top here because it feels like we're going to slow down and turn around just based on, once again, statistical data based on, a year's worth of trading, okay? So all green weeks, if you see you see 5 green, solid green candles Monday through Friday, you got to expect a red candle Saturday or Sunday, right? That's just kind of the concept there. So however you trade that is up to you, of course, but we have a few shorts open right now at this point. We're averaging in carefully with low position size and always the recommendation of low leverage too. Okay, so just be careful with that. Anyways, that's Bitcoin for now. Why don't you comment below, let me know what your thoughts are there. Let's take a look at the next coins. Quick heads up to my traders, make sure you take full advantage of this offer here from Bitunix. There's a significant deposit reward bonus as well as a $16,000 individual reward for just trading on the exchange. If you use my link to register in the past, you're automatically eligible. If you use my link to register now, you're eligible for all future trading bonuses and competitions. Check out the links down below for more information. All right, folks, taking a quick look here at Ethereum, we are actually traveling into our local resistance range based not only on fib levels, but also previous highs. And there's a lot of confluence there with open interest at 4,550. So 4,550 is that range there that we may actually start to see some selling pressure, but let's double check and make sure. Let's double check this here. First of all, here's that quick open interest range, 4,550. That is essentially the current resistance range for us. We got 20 billion liquidation long delta, basically letting us know that bulls are absolutely in control here, and shorting this coin can be considered to be higher risk. But once more, if we take a look here at liquidation, unlike other coins, there's a lot of liquidation on the upside. So this coin has more incentive to continue to run further up. So be very careful trying to short this coin at this exact level. We may want to see how Bitcoin responds to the price action first. And we're also going to double check too the comparative analysis between these two coins, right? So let's take a look at Bitcoin and Ethereum combined kind of side by side and see what that tells us here. So if we take a look here, we can see obviously this pretty significant pump here on the hourly. This is the hourly time frame. We can see our local high here of 121 was just broken. Okay, so potential retest of 121 and then leg up from there, or just in general, we're going to see some selling pressure over the weekend as expected with that slow bleed. It's kind of my anticipation. Either way you look at it here, we broke our local high there. We look at Ethereum, very similar scenario here in a lot of ways. It's not moving quite as hard, and it hasn't truly broken its local high of 4550 or 4560, but we can see this local candlestick closure of 4500 is broken. Okay, so strong chance we see continuation here for Ethereum just based on liquidation and of course the chart itself. Now let's double check the larger time frames and just kind of recognize where we're at here. Once more, we're at our local resistance there, the 0.618 fib levels. And then what we also want to double check too is divergences here. First of all, money flow index is still lower than the RSI. That's generally a sign of weakness, but we can see RSI is continuing higher with MACD and stochastic swinging up. So those are all very, very strong signs. So the easy way to understand it here is we got a lot of support below the price at 4,300 and also 4,400. Pretty significant range there of support with volume, moving averages, and those previous lows here. So hypothetically, the price does pull back right around that $4,400 to $4,300 range would be a very practical consideration for a long. Okay, so just kind of some food for thought there if anybody's waiting for a long entry. I don't recommend FOMOing in right now while this price, the coin should continue higher up. It's really hard to want to recommend that leading into a weekend. We've had 5 strong green days this entire week here, and for the most part, it's just not really a good consideration to take along this high up. But the truth is, the momentum and the continuation likelihood is very high to the upside, so in truth, a long is a much safer play than a short. Just make sure you watch it close if you're to take a long right now. That's all I ask. All right, so all in all, that's kind of where we're at there so far here with Ethereum. Definitely looking like a strong coin. Now, take a look at Solana. This coin has actually surprised me over the last, honestly, 15 to 30 minutes because we are looking at pretty strong continuation pattern here, but also on the lower time frames, it was looking very weak here when the market opened. So let's see if that's changed here and just roughly what's going on here for Solana. When we look at the open interest range, we can see 235 is that area, And right now we're kind of traveling right into that range. So 235 to 236 is that resistance range for Solana. We got 4.5 billion in liquidation long delta, basically the highest we've seen Solana in quite some time. This doesn't happen too often to see that much liquidation in one direction. And if we kind of zoom in here, there's a little bit of open positions there, liquidation above the price. But we zoom in a little bit closer here for the last 7 days. You can see there's just a ridiculous amount to the downside here. But a little bit left at 236. So we might see a candle wake up to 236 to sweep those late shorts and then right back down again. But the likelihood of breaking through this range here is low, just based on the simple fact that I am expecting Bitcoin to slow down here soon. But if Bitcoin keeps pumping, folks, there's no other way around it. Altcoins are going to continue to do the same thing. Let's take a look at the small time frames here and just kind of look at Solana. Solana, obviously, in the last 15 to 30 minutes has absolutely taken off, but that's mainly because Bitcoin just broke through its local high. Now, once again, this is the hourly time frame. We look at this here, we can see significant amount of continuation lower where Bitcoin was not pulling back quite as hard. So that kind of leads me to feel that Solana is going to reject out here soon at its local resistance at 234. So overall, this is an interesting situation. All we need is Bitcoin to slow down and altcoins are going to continue to pull back. But for the most part, we can presume it will continue because we're in this FOMO type of state right now. And there's no reason for the price to be shooting up this high, but it's happening, right? So all in all, very, very crazy situation. So the best strategy in these situations, honestly, is to not trade. And if you insist on FOMOing in, make sure you watch your trades closely and don't get too crazy with leverage or position size. It is not the time to do it. But on the same accord, maybe it is the time to do it because we're breaking into this euphoric type of situation for Bitcoin. And it's a really weird situation, honestly. I don't like trading these kind of conditions because it's like you're kind of down if you do and down if you don't, right? You long the top, the price goes down, or if you short it, it just keeps pumping. It's kind of an interesting dynamic the way things are working right now. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at there. Let's double check SUI, kind of see if there's any important levels that we want to pay attention to here. And as discussed previously, 360 is that significant margin for us, or that significant level. We can see tons of open interest there, reinforcing resistance at 360. But if we close above that on the daily time frame today, that may be a different story altogether. Now, we got a pretty significant amount of long liquidation delta to the upside, no surprise there. And once more, from a macro perspective, heaviest concentration liquidations at $3.80 and $4. So this number is kind of, this coin's kind of easy in the sense as far as like, there's always like round numbers at specific levels. In other words, you'll see liquidation events and resistances at like 360, 380, $4, 420. So it's kind of easy to note that those large round numbers, you see the most amount of buying and selling pressure there. But if we kind of zoom in here the last 7 days, there's that 390 level there for that upper area of liquidation. Not a whole heck of a lot here locally, minus a small amount at 370. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at there. And we take a look at the daily time frame, we can kind of understand that we are above our local point of control. And this is that area I've talked about previously too, where maintaining a closure above this 350 to 360 range does significantly increase the odds of this flag pattern breaking out. So there's a good chance that SUI could really continue higher here after a bullish back to that 350. Okay, so I was hoping to see 350 a lot sooner than now because obviously that's the area in which I was hoping to secure some profits on a short and then maybe consider long at that level. That ship may have sailed. So let's take a look here at the daily time frame, or sorry, smaller time frames. Look, you can see Bitcoin is going bonkers right now. All sorts of fair value gaps in the price action. And we can see here as well too that if we look at SUI, we are in a position where the price action is trying to continue to break through its local high range there at 364. So overall, once again, massive overextensions, significant continuation potential to the downside once we start to see that top hit by Bitcoin. But if Bitcoin just keeps doing this, we're going to see a lot of nonsensical pumps from altcoins, and then they're inevitably going to pull back at some point once they hit their local resistances. So once more, hard to trade these kind of conditions. I really do not like these kind of conditions. This is garbage in my personal opinion, right? But we are now 8 hours of continuation in the same direction. So at this point, I wouldn't be surprised we reject out at 124 and start to pull back or consolidate closer to that resistance range. Just before we take a look at the next altcoin, I want to recommend you consider trading with Bitunix. If you use my link to register down below or have in the past, you'll always be eligible for future trading competitions, but this one is awesome. It's probably the best one I've seen yet, with a full-on $16,000 individual prize pool, as well as a collective prize pool as well for the top 30 traders. Be sure to check out the link down below for more information. All right, so that's kind of SUI for you there. It's definitely looking moderately bullish in the shorter time frames. So consider if you do have a short position open, maybe either consider closing or averaging out of your position just to be on the safe side because these conditions right now are extremely unique. Take a look here at the daily time frame as well for XRP. Before we do that, let's quickly recognize that once again 303 is at previous resistance turn support level. So we do see a correction or a pullback this weekend. It's safe to presume that the low $3 range will be a good consideration for a long. Now, once more, we don't know if that's going to happen. We're in this weird euphoric state right now. But if we look at liquidation delta, it's at 1.5 billion. That's super high for this coin, massively overextended, more likely to correct itself here soon. Now, when we take a look at the heat map here as well, let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit. Last 7 days for XRP, if I recall correctly, there was a chunk at about 310 that's already mostly, well, there's a little bit left. Yeah, 310 to 315 is that next area of liquidation. So we could see a push to 315 before the price pulls back. But all in all, that's kind of what we're looking at there for XRP on the back end. Looking at the daily time frame, we want to double check a couple of things here. And we are doing pretty well here. Once again, we talked about yesterday breaking this descending trend line and likelihood of continuation higher. We're above our point of control at 303, and we have a lot of continuation potential here with being above the RSI at 50, stochastic swinging up and MACD converging. The only thing I don't love is money flow index is low. Most coins have a low MFI on larger time frames, which leads me to believe that we are still, this is early signs of a fake out. But once more, these are very strong continuation patterns. Lower time frames for this coin are overextended, but also still in decent shape here. Nothing too crazy to see. So I don't love these conditions. I've probably said it too many times to count, but I'd just be careful if you're considering trading right now. We got a really, really weird situation on our hands. So we're going to see what happens. I'm looking forward to reevaluating tomorrow to kind of see how Bitcoin responds to this current price action and obviously what's going on here. But all in all, that's the consensus there. What are your thoughts? Why don't you comment below? Love to hear it. Deeply appreciate, again, all the wonderful support. Like, subscribe, and follow if you haven't already. Make sure you take advantage of our offer here for, basically we're looking at a pretty significant bonus here for, of course, the month of October or October, whatever you want to call it. There's a new promotion here available. So this is available for all current members and future considerations. Permanent access is only offered once. I haven't done this ever before, so consider taking advantage of that. I got a lot of questions about it regarding that, so just shoot me a direct message if you have any questions. That's a simple way to understand it. All right, folks, look forward to working with you. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you in the next one. Take care out there.